Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we kick off our first actual webinar as a supporting vendor partner of the Board Retailers Association. And on this first one, we're excited to welcome on Doug Works, Executive Director of the Board Retailers Association. Thanks for coming in today, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad we could get this together. I'm really looking forward to not only this webinar, but each of our quarterly webinars coming up. You know, at Board Retailers Association, we really strive to provide the resources that help board specialty retailers become profitable, to increase profit margins, to lower day-to-day costs, and to create more remarkable customer experiences. So we thank you for your partnership and how you support our organization.
Absolutely. And we also have Dane Cohen, our business development manager. Even though we're talking about e-com, Dane is going to lend his insights into how e-com and inventory really play a role in the business. So thanks again, Dane.
All right, excited to be here, guys.
And we have a lot of content to go over. So before we actually get into the meat of this, I wanted to make sure that everybody could hear us properly. A couple of ground rules. The GoToWebinar platform has two options for you. So you can listen via computer or phone. And this is an open panel. So use the questions platform. Let us know if you have anything that you'd like to ask myself or Dane or Doug, and we'll get to a little bit of Q&A towards the end. The most important question we get is, are you recording this? And we absolutely are. So after we end the recording, we're going to make this available to the Board Retailers Association and on our YouTube channel as well. So really quickly, who is Management One? If you're not familiar with us, thank you for joining. Our purpose is to provide financial security for our people, our clients, and our affiliates. And we do that through merchandise intelligence and education, like these sessions for people like you. We operate with a set of core values being a generous heart, courage, curiosity, adaptability, commitment, and collaborative efforts like these as well. And we've also made a specific commitment to increase racial and ethnic diversity in our own company and in our outreach as well. And we have some programs that we'll be rolling out this summer that we're really excited to put out there. But let's talk about e-com, the big elephant in the room in 2020. The big thing, and it's actually really pertinent for board retailers because it's a really personal exchange in a board retail shop, that tactile experience that you get from feeling a board and stepping into a board, that was really tough in e-com, and it's been eroding. The e-com impact on retail has been eroding over time. It's really just put to the forefront in 2020. So the pandemic accelerated something that was already happening, and we can see that in the data when you look at year over year, the comparison of e-com versus total growth. It's been about a 15% to 17% erosion of e-com slowly eating away at total retail. But last year that jumped to a high double digits of about 44%. So really it just, as we mentioned on our webinar last week, it just kind of shifted the timeline about 5 years up. So this was really always going to happen. But COVID-19 really just kind of put any back burner projects that you might have had on e-com on the front burner. And let's talk about exactly what that looks like. So when you're looking at complete store shutdown like we did in 2020, and I think from the board retailer's perspective, that really hurt, because how do you really touch your consumers? Where do they go if they can't come into the store and again get that tactile experience? But it's not like they disappeared off the face of the earth. So when you think about how you're going to reach back out to them, think about how they changed their habits. Think about now the convenience that they have of shopping from home. I think the major issue for board retailers especially is the fact that while folks were away from the store, they had this exposure to new online retailers that may have weakened that brand loyalty that you've worked so hard to build. So how do we get that back? The other difficulty that really impacts board retailers, I think, is all of the larger big box stores now have the capabilities of putting together these new omni-channel retail experiences, and it's really going to raise the bar overall of what the consumer expects from a store. And that doesn't mean that you have to adopt all of these, but how can you use the resources that you have available to stay on par, or at least find new and creative ways to reach out to your customer base? And it really comes into three main things about staying connecting to your existing audience. And one, getting their attention. Number two, availability. How are you going to be available to them with all the new digital channels that folks have become accustomed to? And number three, the convenience. How easy is it to find your store? How easy is it to look at product? How easy is it to check out? Those are all things that people have become very accustomed to, and it's something that you need to be mindful of when you're developing an e-com strategy. So it really comes down, when you're looking at e-com, to three main things. When you're developing that customer relationship, and it's a pretty basic marketing principle, they have to know who you are, they have to like your products and services, or at least like the fact that it fits their specific need. And the main one is they have to trust that spending their money with you is going to be a positive experience. And if you can get somebody into that trust circle, then you pretty much have a customer for life. If you can continue to maintain that trust with them, it's the easiest to turn them into the fourth wheel, which I didn't include, which is more of a referral partner. Then they actually start bringing more people into the fold. But those are the three main things that we're going to concentrate on today. The first one being knowledge. How do you get them to know who you are? How do you rise above the fold in this new noise-driven e-com environment? And when we talk about e-com, it's really just about widening your digital footprint. You're in a much larger pool now. So your website is one digital piece of inventory, as I like to call it. But the website is just one aspect of your digital footprint. So you have to make sure that your store exists in as many places as possible so that people have access to your services, they have access to the products that you provide, they have access to contact you whenever they need to. And we'll go over a variety of those things in this call today. The first one, most importantly, obviously being your website. So we could spend another hour talking just about website design. We're not going to do that today. What I wanted to go over today is really just the basics of what you should have on the website if you're going to compete in the digital market with the peers. And the first one would be some type of a way to capture email, whether it's a pop-up on your homepage, whether it's a section above or near the fold, some way of capturing emails so that you have that inventory of emails that you can use later. And I'll go over a little later in this presentation how you can leverage that bank of emails that you have. But that's really going to be your outreach, because it's a two-way street. The consumer has to know who you are, and you absolutely have to know who they are, because that's the whole key of segmenting your message, and that's how you're going to get most of your outreach done if you know who the consumer is. The second most important one is social media. I can't tell you how many sites I go to that either don't have a link to their social media sites or it's a broken link. And you want to make sure that people can at least bounce back and forth between your digital properties, and a tracking pixel as well. So if you're using Facebook, for example, you absolutely have to have a tracking pixel on your website. And I'm going to go over a variety of reasons why later on in this presentation, but just baseline have that Facebook tracking pixel. Same thing with Google as well. And we'll get into a little bit of ad strategy later, but the main reason you want to implement those today is because those pixels are generating audiences for you, even though you don't even know it. So every day you have those pixels on your site, you might not be ready to do advertising yet, but when you are, it's good to, for example, let's say you want to send an ad to folks that have visited your site over the past 90 days. Well, you won't have that information if you decide to implement the tracking pixel on day one of your ad strategy. So you really want those tracking pixels working in the background, gathering as much information about your visitors as you possibly can. And they're free. That's also the easiest part of it. It's a tiny snippet of code that lives on the back end of your site, completely free. The other one that we'll get into as well is the Google Business Listing, which is almost like a little mini website that lives on Google Maps, and we'll discuss the power of that later. The bonus channel would be having a Google Merchant Center account. And if you've ever searched for anything, for example, like ski goggles on Google, the very first line of windows that shows all the Google shopping products if you're going to have a Google shopping strategy, you need a Google Merchant Center account, but it's not critical. I'd put that more of a bonus. I'm also going to talk about online directories a little bit later in this as well, and some SEO basics for your sites. So again, we could spend another hour talking about the ins and outs of all the SEO strategies that are out there. But really, you just need to focus on some of the basics. If you're not going to get into the meat of hiring a third party to handle your SEO, just make sure that your page titles at least have some of the keywords that you need to sell that particular product or service. The other one is meta description. There's about a 400 character meta description slot for each page on your website. And just make sure that you have relevant keywords. For example, ski goggles, if you're selling on your site, make sure that you have a description about the goggles, the brands that you carry, some of the features of those on your meta description. The final one would be file names. So I keep going back to the ski goggles because it's top of mind. Let's say you have 60 different ski goggles that you're selling on your webpage, and you have about 5 images for each of those goggles. Don't upload them to your website titled IMG_945781. Call it ski goggle with the brand and maybe the color, because that's about 300 images on your website now that also have a brand name and the term ski goggle on there that Google's going to crawl when people are searching on their site. So it's something free and easy that you can have on your website that lends a little bit of SEO juice to the site. But a lot of folks on this call today, or if you're watching the recording after, thinking, well, I'm still not looking at selling a ton of apparel on my website. That's fine. It's not just having a website is not just about selling products, especially in today's age. And I would think especially for board retailers as well. Doug, I would actually put this one to you. I mean, when you think about apparel and gear, how many board retailers that you know, or maybe one or two specifically, that have really just kind of layered on more of a service-oriented model, not just apparel?
Well, yeah, we've definitely seen that. I mean, it's been a situation where, snowboard shops, of course, do their waxing and tuning, and they'll schedule, a variety of appointment-based situations we've seen, especially during the pandemic, as the lockdown was as people were getting out of the lockdown and capacities were increasing a little bit, but not significantly. They did a lot of appointment buying, things along those lines. I think really that website, even if you're not selling a ton, and we saw a lot of conversion with the pandemic where especially skate shops hadn't even had an online presence other than Instagram, Facebook prior to the pandemic, and they were able to launch through a variety of resources their site, and in some cases it became a viable vehicle in terms of online sales, but in a lot of cases it also became viable from a marketing standpoint. People would do their research, they'd go online, they'd actually take a look to see what the shop had available online, and then they would either buy it there and pick it up in store, the BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, or they would kind of check it out and then go in the store and know what they wanted, because they didn't want to spend a lot of time in the store anyway, because of all those concerns and everything. So they said, you know what, I'm going to figure out what I want in store before I get there. And of course, for the benefit of the retailer, when they did get there, not only did they purchase that item that they were drawn to on the website, but they also said, oh, wow, you've got this too. Or, the shop was able to upsell them, say they got the complete skateboard, the shop was able to upsell them on the tool, say they got the snowboard, the shop was able to upsell them on a new set of bindings and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's actually in 2021. I think that's really going to be the flip. In 2020, it was really a survival play. I have to have this site up here just because it's the only thing I have. But now it's more of an attractor to bring people into the store. So you really want to showcase those services. If you have an exclusive relationship with a particular brand, brag about that. We're the only store in town that offers X surfboard line, or maybe you have a unique story in business with the community. Tell
Yeah,
folks about that. It's your way to bring them back into the store.
absolutely. And without going on too much of a tangent, that community-minded mindset really created the opportunity for a lot of board specialty retailers to kind of come back a little bit stronger. I mean, focusing not just on their shop, but supporting other local businesses. Buy local. There was a big push. One of our vendor partners helped us with a support your local shop type program, and it really fueled the push for gift cards. At that time, people couldn't even go into the
Yeah.
shops, but they were able to actually purchase the gift cards. And a lot of shops would basically, you pay $100, you get $120 in value, and things along those lines, which is great, because gift cards have a built-in discount to them, because about 20% of gift cards are not redeemed, which is kind of nice. And so
Yeah.
from that perspective, and really getting around the community, people rallying to, for example, and cut me off if I take too long here, but I'm really
No, no.
proud of our retailers. Coastal Edge, for example, out of Virginia Beach, and they have a number of shops in the surrounding area. They are huge on supporting their community. So when the pandemic happened, the food banks were starting to run out of food, and they really rallied behind the food banks and raised, I think I read, they raised about 3,000 pounds of canned foods, perishable, non-perishable foods for these food banks. And then in addition to that, they brought, you were talking about brands kind of coming to support the retailers. They really pushed their brands, including Vans, to help their community. They had found out that the American Red Cross had basically, because of the pandemic, lost the opportunity to collect 10,000 donations of blood, and obviously that's super important. And so
Yeah.
Coastal Edge was able to rally Vans to provide a free pair of skate shoes for every participant in that blood drive, and that was huge, and that created
That's
a huge local impact, bigger than the shop, bigger than the community. And that's the type of thing that really makes a shop remarkable. Seth Godin,
and
who's
it
an
makes the shop
amazing,
memorable as well.
oh yeah, Seth Godin, for example, he's a marketing author, just a famous marketing author that has said a lot of amazing things and provided a ton of great resources. He says, if you're not remarkable, you're invisible. And that's absolutely the case. If you're not creating a remarkable impact for your community and your customers, you're invisible. And the same goes for the online program. If you're not visible, not just visible, but remarkable, you're invisible.
And that's even amplified in the digital world. So it's more relevant now to stay in front of folks in a variety of different spots. And that's one of the things that we'll get to next. The next one being email marketing. So when you think about, again, we could talk about email marketing for an hour, but the basics, when you think about how you reach out to your customer, you don't need a very high-tech designed templated email. You don't need a sophisticated automation system or dynamic product placement. It's just not a requirement. It's just about getting in front of the right people. So really building your email list, whether it's through events with the community or through efforts on your website. Make sure that you're sending also segmented messages. It's not all about just sending a blanket email. And if it's just literally a couple of lines with a large JPEG that's kind of your flyer templated email, that's fine. It's a matter of just staying in front of them and having something relevant to click through to. Those are kind of the basics on email. And once you're set up for that, you can start dipping a toe into things like cart abandonment, drip campaigns, milestone events, things like it's been X number of days since you've shopped with us, or even if it's just their birthday or when they purchased their first board, it really doesn't matter. That's kind of the tier 2 on your email marketing. And then I would say tier 3 would be really getting into, if your system is capable of doing it, moving into more dynamic product emails where somebody looks at something on your website and they get an email with that exact product. But definitely focus on the basics of email first.
Right, and some retailers are a little hesitant to ask their customers. They feel like they're putting their customer out for asking for personal information, whether it's a cell phone number to do an SMS campaign or email for the all the things that we're talking about here. But it's really easy to justify, and your customers will thank you if you provide them with a discount coupon. Hey, can I get your email so that we can send you out a discount coupon?
Or any incentive. I mean, maybe you have an event coming up and you're like, don't miss out on the next event. Make sure that we're able to contact you. Or if they like a particular brand line and you know that you're getting a new shipment in the next couple of weeks, just tell them this is going to sell out. Make sure you give us your email so that we can reach out to you when it comes in. Just
Absolutely.
incentivize them for providing that information.
Absolutely.
And also don't overuse it. If you're emailing your list every single day or multiple times a day, then you'll start to see your open rates go down. You'll start to see your click rates go down. And that's a good indicator that you're oversaturating your communication. So it's kind of a delicate balance as well.
For sure. It's the law of diminishing returns. You only need to polish something so long before it's shiny, and you keep polishing. It doesn't really do much except dull it, really.
Yeah. So I mentioned a Google business listing, and I go on and on about this mainly because when we're talking about digital properties, the Google business listing is one of the most powerful tools you can have. It's almost like a mini website that exists in tandem with your own site. So I picked on Spider surfboards here just because they're down the road for me and I love them. But if you think about searching for a store online, the Google business listing gives you the opportunity to showcase your services, your hours of operation, leverage your reviews for sure, but it also lets you add store photos. So it gives people something to scroll through when they're looking at. So add some pictures of new brands that you're working with, add event photos. You can even add full advertisements for your next event. It's really your space to play with. And the reason that I bring it up, also talking about Spider, is because so many websites that I go to, let's say I go to spidersurf.com and I say they have all of their locations listed. You tell somebody, come visit my location. In the case of Spider, and tons of other websites out there, they're linking folks to the actual address, which is good. That gets you from point A to point B. But instead of doing that, link them to your Google business listing, because you're telling folks, come to my store, and they click to it. All they're getting is an address, and they're not really getting anything about the store. So this is almost like, I call it a warm visit. They're clicking the location and you're giving them just an intro into what the store is all about. And in the case of Spider surfboards, you see somebody with 31 reviews and a 4.9 star rating, automatically that raises eyebrows and think, oh, all right, these guys have a great reputation. Oh, good, they're open at 10 a.m. All right, I'm gonna go there. So it just gives them a little more information and helps move the process along.
Yeah, and Nico, just to jump in here for a second, I think for retailers to think about, especially Google listings, Google My Business listings, it is now a customer service issue. It is no longer just looking good online. If a customer, searches your store, and everyone's entering searches through Google, especially if they're, out and about and they want to say surf shop near me or board shop near me, and they come to your listing and the hours of operation are wrong, and they come to your store out of a time where it is listed, it now is a customer service issue. So, I think viewing it through that lens, because I think so many retailers, would say customer service is top of their priority list. You have to now think of online customer service, even if you're not interacting with the customer directly through your website. This becomes such a vital part of that mindset.
Absolutely, and it's only compounded when you think of all of the other listings out there. You start thinking of Bing, Yellow Pages, Yahoo, Super Pages. Your site your store, I should say, can live on, I believe there's about 70 or 80 different online listings now. And if people are finding you and your information is incorrect, you're right, it is a customer service issue. I also mentioned some of the localized apps as well. You can have a business listing on Yelp and Nextdoor and Ring. I put offer up and let go here because we have had some retailers in different sectors that have used these to offload old inventory. So something's been sitting on the shelves forever and you're just, markdowns aren't doing it, nothing is getting it out there. I have had some retailers in other sectors that have used some of the localized apps, even Facebook Marketplace, to offload some of their inventory.
Right. And
But to Dane's point, yeah.
Real quick on that offer up, let go stuff. We actually have a really great strategy that we provide to our retailers in relation to slow moving inventory, things that are collecting dust on the wall and in the case and that kind of thing.
Excellent.
So if you're interested in that strategy, shoot me a text or DM me or email me, and I can walk you through that, because obviously you want to be very cautious about devaluing your brands and devaluing, if somebody can go wait, and then go on offer up or let go or eBay or whatever else kind of thing and get something at a significant discount, people will start trending that way, and they already have in some categories. So it's important to figure out ways to move that slow moving inventory without creating a devaluation. So
no, I totally agree with that as well. To Dane's point, though, making sure that your information is correct. A lot of folks don't have the bandwidth of following their store across 80 different platforms. So there's a variety of services. I put Yext out there as one of them because that's actually what Management One uses. And for $50 a month, you can change your store details in one portal and it aggregates it out to the 80 different online listings. So
that's definitely helpful.
Definitely a resource to use. And we also partner with Crystal Media, who's close to you, Doug, actually down in SoCal.
Yeah, they're
and
great.
She offers a free scan of your services. So you can type in your website URL and it'll scan all of your data across multiple online listings just to find inconsistencies like Dane was talking about. Maybe you have an old phone number or contact email address. It's good to just do a quick audit and make sure that you're showing up with relevant information. Browser push notifications, I won't touch on for too long, but this is something that folks have been using just to follow a visitor off the site. It's something that's opt-in. So Doug, to your point again, people are going to have to be incentivized to use it. So whether it's a discount code or maybe your next event or a new brand coming on board, give them a reason to stay in the know. And with the browser push notification, maybe they go off of your site, but they're still surfing around the web. They'll get a little pop-up in the corner of their browser saying, hey, don't miss our event next week. We're giving away a free surfboard. Join the competition.
Absolutely. And along those lines, we also have another vendor partner by the name of Podium that brings that online back to text messaging, which is absolutely great. You've probably been to some websites where all of a sudden a pop-up happens, how can we help you? Or do you have any questions about this kind of thing? And you click on that and you fill in your SMS information, and it's very, very easy. And with the Podium program, it even goes from that to the ability to purchase the product through the phone and everything. So it's a really great resource.
So full circle e-com. And you mentioned with SMS too, again, it's something that you have to be very mindful of frequency, because even though open rates are fantastic with text messages, that can erode pretty quickly if you're constantly pinging somebody and you're not giving them the relevant information that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
So
you don't want
really
to send,
just about,
you don't want to send one text without gaining that participants or that customer's approval before that text comes in. And then once it comes in, you don't want to flood them. You just want to just treat people like you want to be treated. If you're getting spammed by somebody, you're just like, I'm over it, right? So you want to extend that same courtesy to your customers. I mean, treat them, in some cases better than your family.
Yeah, and you've really, if you do that, you've kind of ruined all of the trust and loyalty that you've built up over the last months or years with that customer, and that's never going to be good. So we're talking about digital experience as well. One of the things that we talked about in our webinar last week with retail innovation, even though QR codes aren't innovative, the way that they've been used over the last 12 months actually has been pretty innovative and new for a lot of retailers. So we're talking about fusing that experience between the in-store and the digital properties. Having a QR code on your products, linking to enhanced online content is just another way of giving folks something to look at. So, for example, if there's a skate deck in your shop, have a quick QR code to a skater in a half pipe, or maybe the technical features of that skateboard and the 360 rotation that you get from the brand. Anything that you can do to extend that engagement with the product and give them something to do if there isn't a sales associate readily available, something that they can do to really stay engaged. But there's also an ancillary benefit to that as well. And it goes back to what I was talking about with tracking pixels. So you want to have a tracking pixel on all of your landing pages anywhere on your site as well. So let's say, for example, somebody's in your store and they scan a QR code of a skateboard. Automatically, you've got them on your site. There's a tracking pixel. Now you know who they are. Even if you don't know their name, even if you don't know anything about them, you have a link to them where you can serve up an ad later, or you can get something back in front of them. It's just all about grabbing as many hooks into the traffic that you possibly can.
Absolutely. You have some of their preferences when they scan that, okay, they like Santa Cruz, or they like, independent trucks, or they like, this or that kind of thing. We have a vendor partner, a brand partner that creates protection plans, or provides protection plans for surfboard customers, and it's an amazing service, and they use those QR codes on the surfboards so that our retailers don't have to carry additional inventory. They just put the QR code sticker on the surfboard, and that customer can be upsold that protection plan, which would cover for broken fins, broken board, ding repair, things like that. And the benefit for the retailer, the surf retailer, would be that the replacement board would be purchased by Surf Care from their inventory, and that's just a really great situation. And same with any kind of repair and all that. So we've been really pleased with that kind of new technology incorporated with our vendor partner efforts and that type of thing.
I love it. It just really adds that level of engagement that you're not getting, because any second that they're spending on your digital sites is a second they're not spending on somebody else's site. I've also seen gamification out of it as well. Some folks have developed like a QR code scavenger hunt that really gets folks involved. So I could see something along those lines in a board shop, or maybe a random sticker with a logo at a skate park that just has a QR code to find out more information.
That's great. That would be super appealing for a lot of retailers, especially skate, but surf, snow, wake, any of that.
Absolutely.
That type of scavenger hunt, customer engagement program that they can convey on social media and bring to the store is awesome.
Yeah. But going back to Dane's point as well, it could present a customer service issue. We're talking about 80 different online listings. We're talking about QR codes scattered across the globe. This is your opportunity to double down now on customer support, because now you're going to have folks reaching out to you via text, via email, via website chat module, or Facebook Messenger. So make sure that you have a strategy in place, whether you're assigning a team member to a specific channel, anything that you can do to make sure that you're not missing a sale. It's time to double down on those lines of communication, because if you're going to be exponentially expanding those out online, then you have to make sure that you're ready to get that influx of calls or emails or texts.
By the way, Nico, here, automated responses are your best friend. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that they think that they can handle all the influx of communication that's coming in. So even having a response that just automatically replies and says, thank you for reaching out. The best way to contact us is through this email. Funnel everyone to what works best for your business. I think it could be overwhelming, especially for an owner-operated store that may have, an owner who's also a manager who also works the floor, and one sales associate. It's not always possible for them to take all of those replies through all these different mediums. So saying, call the store, here's the number, write into us at our email, if that's what works best, I think that's really helpful. So at least the touch point comes back to the customer, and then they can funnel the communication to the right place that it needs to go. And that works for the retailer.
Absolutely.
I would say use your brand voice too in those.
For sure. Dane, on that, even with the automated response, should there be a period of time indicated? We'll be in touch with you within 24 hours, or less is more on that, or how do you?
Absolutely. I think giving it a time frame, it helps people kind of frame their, it's like when you place an order online and it says shipping is in 5 to 8 days. You're not looking for it the next 2 days. You have a little bit of, give yourself 24 to 48 hours if that's what you need.
Okay.
As long as you can stick to that, right?
Sure. It's all about managing expectations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because my only cautionary note with that is that people can sniff out a canned response, and especially with board retailers, they really like that personal attachment to their stores. So you want to make sure that you at least give them, like what Doug was saying, let them know that yes, an actual person is going to be reaching out to you in a certain amount of time, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever the store can handle. But yeah, I absolutely agree. A touch point, whether it's automated or actual, needs to be involved in all of the channels of communication.
And I like what Nico said about keeping your brand voice. These don't have to be stale messages.
No.
You could be a little irreverent. You can be you. That's what makes each retailer unique.
Absolutely. Like a surf shop can greet their customers even with the automated message with aloha and mahalo. It's very, very appropriate.
Love that.
It's actually encouraged. It's a way of extending that know, like, and trust model. It's a way of getting them to like what you're talking about. So the next thing we'll talk about when we talk about digital is digital marketing. It's really no longer an option. If you're going to be playing in a new digital pool, we mentioned earlier, even though stores are open back up, there still can be a reduced sense of foot traffic in brick and mortar. Folks aren't quite ready to get out there yet. You're playing in a much larger pool with more competition on digital. So how are you going to stay top of mind? It's not going to happen 100% organically. So how are you going to throw a little bit of ad money towards that just to make sure that you're growing your audience? How are you going to get the most bang for your buck? So if we're talking about where to spend ad dollars, the old model of radio and TV, static ads, maybe you're buying an advertisement in a local community paper or direct mail, it's offering you limited control over the conversation. And it's really difficult to pivot your message. When you think about things changing in COVID almost on a daily basis, some of those static ads that you get in a newspaper or a local listing, you have to purchase those weeks in advance. So what if you drop $3,000 on a local ad and then your store is closed, or maybe the event was canceled due to unforeseen circumstances? You can't get that money back. And you have very little audience transparency into who's actually looking at that. So when we talk about digital marketing, it really gives you that targeted dynamic audience creation capability. And it also gives you the real-time feedback into who's looking at that ad. I mean, you can look each day and see who's clicking on my ad, down to the age demographic, the gender demographic. You don't really get that from the radio, TV, and ads perspective. And you can be extremely agile. If your event's canceled, you cancel that campaign today, and then you're only out X number of dollars. The other thing is the upfront spend. You have to buy a lot of these traditional advertising models, again, weeks and months in advance with money up front. With digital marketing, you're paying as you go. So if you need to cancel something, or if you're just finding out, you know what, this ad's not working, then you kill it, and you're only out maybe $500 instead of $3,000. So it just gives you a way of being extremely agile. And I never like to say that a campaign failed. It really just gave you more information into what people resonate with and what people don't resonate with. So it just gives you an opportunity to pivot instead of saying that something just didn't work.
I think that's great. And just to highlight that a little bit, some of our retailers are very savvy on this, and others maybe not. But to be able to identify a sunk cost, to be able to identify, okay, this isn't working. Even if I turn up the volume a little bit, it's not the right approach. I need to shift gears and approach it differently. The thought for some of the retailers would be, well, I already spent this much, I should continue. No, it's a sunk cost. It's behind you. Get on with something that works.
And learn from it. Yeah. And it really comes back to ROI. You know, it's a different relative term for each business. So it doesn't have to be maybe they bought X number of hoodies off of the website. It could just be they booked X number of appointments, or maybe I got X number of registrants to an event that I had. So really think about what your definition of that return on investment is going to be. And yeah, Doug, to your point, there was an article in Forbes back in August, and they talked about spray and pray advertising, and you're just kind of sending these messages out there and hoping that they're resonating, but you're not taking the time to really target them to the right people. So if you boost an ad on Facebook and then just kind of cross your fingers and hope that it's getting to the right folks because you have some interests models that you have on your advertising campaign, it's not always going to work. So how do we segment that message? And there's a variety of different ways. When you're talking about expanding your social audience, start basic. You know, you can start with a general geo-targeted ad with your store as the center, pick maybe 20 to 25 mile radius around your store and do a very general introductory ad. You can also do lookalike audiences, and I'll get into that on the next slide. But that's really where you want to leverage, again, going back to those website tracking pixels. Make sure that those systems are in place to generate the audiences that you need to get those ads to the right spot. And explore new social platforms. I mean, TikTok for some of our other retailers might not be a good platform, but I think for board retailers, for the younger demographic, TikTok would be a fantastic platform. And now with their direct integration into Shopify and with their own ad platform and their own targeting pixel, TikTok is really starting to become a lot more formidable, but make sure that you're leveraging it in the right way. If you want to use TikTok, get that tracking pixel on your site today so you can start building that audience.
Absolutely. It's huge. It's important.
So when I talk about lookalike audiences, Doug kind of keyed in on it before. If you have these tracking pixels on your site, Facebook tracks, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 500 different data points on any given user on their system. So we'll go back to maybe the QR code example. Somebody's in your store and they scan a QR code on a certain skate deck. Automatically, that tracking pixel picked up their traffic, and Facebook knows, okay, they are in this store at this particular time. They're looking at this particular skate brand. You can tell Facebook, create a lookalike audience based on the folks that have already trafficked my store. And that could be anything. Facebook does the work for you, and it pulls whatever data points it feels relevant to get you an audience that looks very similar in interests to the one that you have. And it could be anything from maybe they go to the same high school, maybe they have the same friends, maybe they attended the same event 3 months ago. You don't know that, but Facebook knows that. So let Facebook work its magic and create new audiences. Now they're going to be cold, but they're at least going to be a little bit warm to the same interests that your existing traffic is coming from. And going back to emails as well, when you're talking about lookalike audiences, you can take your entire email list and upload it onto your YouTube account and create a lookalike audience off of those email addresses as well. So it's about a 45 to 50% match rate, I think, on Facebook, but it's a good way of just expanding what you already have and getting more leverage off of your existing audience.
Wow.
So let's talk about organic, because it's not all going to be paid. So when you're connecting with your audience, it's not about, we were talking again about over texting, over emailing, same thing with social media. You don't have to send something out every single day, cat memes or random viral memes that you think are going to get attention. Post things that are relevant. I know, Doug, you guys do this on board retailers. You're constantly posting great information about your retailers. You're posting awesome surf videos, skate videos, things that are going to keep people coming back, getting them engaged on what you're going to be posting next. And that's really what it's about. You want to get them interested in what are they going to show us next.
Yeah, it's absolutely key. And you know, we're really big on reposting things that would be perceived by our board shops customers as, you know, relevant or remarkable, amazing kind of thing, you know, video clips and things like that. So we do a little bit of that, but of course we also provide, you know, images and videos to really promote the resources that we provide and all that stuff. But it's a mix, and just like with any of these shops, if all you're doing on your Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok and things like that is posting product photos, it becomes a little bland. You know, sure, it's exciting a little bit to get the new FA boards or that kind of thing, but if you're not mixing in video of your team riders and other things, even like antics in the shop that people can relate to, and ways to engage, if it's all stagnant, you know, photos, images of product, it starts to, you know, you start to lose the power of social media, and it becomes a little bit like that kind of stagnant old website that wasn't interactive, you know.
Absolutely. No, mixing it up is a perfect strategy because it also keeps them guessing, you know, what are you going to be posting next? And if they keep seeing the same product photos, then it gets a little visually stale. You're totally correct on that one.
And you could even, go ahead, Dane.
But just to tie all this together, because I see focusing on local, show pictures of your customers. There is not one big box store that is going to show a customer, and that focused attention, you know, you can make a customer feel like a celebrity. Other people are interested in it. They want to see real people in your store, using your products, and, you know, finding joy in shopping with you. So I think that that is a great way to build that social community. Show real people in the store. Show associates. Show, you know, people love that.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest strength, I think, with local community over big box stores. Local stores have so much power in that connection that big box stores don't.
Absolutely. I mean, focusing, like you said, Dane, focusing on your customers, taking photos of them, but even better is having that short video of the reaction of that kid getting their first skateboard, or, you know, that type of thing, and using that platform. What's great is you have 3 columns on Instagram kind of thing. You could set it up where every 3rd or 6th photo kind of thing is that particular type of thing, so that it doesn't get saturated with one or the other kind of thing. And you know, or maybe the product shot is every 6th one, or that type of thing. And so the other thing to really highlight on that is not only your efforts and your customers and your employees, but your local community, you know, and other shops that are creating a difference in your community. You promote them a little bit, guess what they're going to do? They're going to reciprocate. It's the law of reciprocity. Even if they didn't ask for your promotion, they're going to see that when you tag them in there and be like, we love these guys. Go there, guys. Go get your surfboard, get your skateboard, get your snowboard, get everything, you know. And it builds that community where 1 + 1 = 3 or 10 or 1,000, you know.
Yep. And when we were talking again about the Google business listing, if you have 31 reviews on your Google My Business, pull some of the text off of those reviews and put it up on a social post. Just show people what other real folks are saying about your shop. It's only going to affirm that trust in what you're providing to the community.
Absolutely.
The next thing I was going to say is give them a new experience. We were looking at, I found a couple of shops online that were doing these mobile pop-ups. I put Starkey's up on screen because I love the fact that it was really just him going around in a trailer with these various decks, and he set up a weekly event at a local pub, knowing that folks are going to be there every week. And he really started to develop this online following, and you start to create this sense of FOMO, like, oh, I missed out on that last event, or something to put on social media is, where is the mobile pop-up going to be next week? And you get people following you where you're going to be. And it all ties in together because you don't have to have your entire product set rolling around with you. Maybe you just have one showpiece with a QR code and just say, oh, you want this? Here, scan it. We'll send it to you. So it's a way of tying everything that we're talking about on today's webinar into one experience. And I thought the mobile pop-up was a fantastic way to do it.
Absolutely.
And putting it outside of a bar is even a better strategy.
Putting it outside of a bar cannot hurt.
Well, yeah, they definitely are looser with their dollars.
True, but I mean, you could even set up at like a local skate park.
Oh yeah, no doubt, and a lot of them do. You know, we have retailers that are, you know, like Faithful Skate Shops, a mobile retailer in California, that they go from park to park and they create events, and you know, we have a number of retailers that create, they do lessons and camps and clinics and these things at their local skate park that create that remarkable experience that will drive back, if they don't have the mobile situation, to drive back to the shop and to create the content related to it, the recap video of that event. It's not enough just to have that remarkable event. You need to have that remarkable event that you're able to recap in a 1 minute or less video that gets people hyped, like, oh wow, I missed that, I got to go to the next one.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into this slide, because in the pandemic, video really, I mean, it was king before, but it really solidified itself as the go-to for people to consume information online. And the good thing about COVID, at least, if there has to be a silver lining, is it totally ruined the model of having this high-end, super highly produced video. You don't have to do that anymore.
Not
if
at
you
all.
have an iPhone, you have a video. I can remember the brand that I worked with before this job, we spent, I think it was in the neighborhood of $11,000 to $12,000 on a 90-second sizzle reel for a product line that we were launching in a couple of weeks. And it was locations and models and making sure everything was looking just right. That, imagine what you can do with that $12,000 in what you can also accomplish on a $100 edited iPhone video. You get the exact same result these days, but now you have a lot more money left over.
And it comes across as more authentic.
Authentic, for sure.
If you as a shop owner either set it up on a tripod or have your employee hold it or whatever, you're having a conversation with your customers. Hey, this is so and so from one of our distinguished retail members, Concrete Lodge, is really good about this, and John over there has conversations across Instagram all the time with his customers, and it really makes a big impact.
Absolutely. The only thing I'll touch on quickly before I move on, because we are getting short on time, is when we're talking about creating ad audiences, you can create audiences based on how long somebody watched a video on your page. And it's a great way of, again, segmenting your dollars on advertising to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. Because if you get somebody to watch a video beyond the 10 to 15 second mark in this day and age, they're interested. And if they're interested, they're definitely going to want to see a follow-up ad from your brand.
Wow, you guys are so resourceful. I'm really, I'm just going to take a second to plug you for a second. Management One is awesome, and they have these types of strategies and the knowledge behind the implementation of the strategies. So we're really pleased to have them as a supporting vendor partner. Thanks again, Nico and Dan.
No, we're happy to be here, and I'm afraid we are going to probably go over a little bit. And again, it's so difficult to get all of these into one thing, because the slide we have up now, social selling, we could spend an hour on that as well, but I wanted to at least touch on it to show that so many of our clients now leverage social selling in the pandemic, and it's something they're going to continue to do afterwards. And I think for board retailers, it's a great way of getting people into the store. If you're really showing them how the board operates, if you're showing them new lines that you get, social selling is a fantastic channel that folks have been using. We talked about the power of reviews. I can't stress enough, if you have written reviews, if you have testimonials, if you can get folks, to Dane's point, if you can get a video of them coming into the store, buying a new board. Doug, you mentioned the look on a kid's face when he gets his first. All of those are review-like and testimonial-like, and they're worth gold for your brand. So leverage them in your advertising, leveraging them in your email marketing, on your social media. It's just evergreen content that you can continue to spin up and advance that customer experience. Going to talk a little bit about payment and conversion, because if you do get somebody on your website that is ready to buy right now, make sure that you have as many forms of payment as possible for them to buy. During the pandemic, digital wallets like PayPal and Venmo and Google Wallet, people really racked up a good amount of money on there. I know there was a lot of third-party interactions going on between friends that couldn't see each other, but there's still money being changed back and forth. Now all of those are almost like bank accounts that people can use to buy your product. So make sure that you have the ability to tap into those.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've gone through with putting something in my cart, going through the checkout process, and if there's not Apple Pay, or I just either forget to grab my wallet and just the whole sale disappears. So, those are free ways to pick up, business.
Absolutely, and Venmo especially. I mean, we even collect our annual Distinguished Retail Member dues through Venmo, and that helps a lot. And that's something that can tie right to the account. And we can talk about how to treat it from an accounting standpoint. If you want to reach out to us or the Management One people, but the Venmo is just a great vehicle, and more people are using that, and especially the younger customers.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to just be e-com. I mean, this is something you can use in store as well. Again,
Absolutely.
with QR codes. If somebody wants to check out right there with a QR code for Venmo, you don't want to put up barriers to them converting on a product.
Absolutely. And that reduces any kind of bottlenecks in the shop itself. You don't have to wait at the register necessarily. You can actually,
absolutely,
somebody can kind of check you out on the floor. It's a great situation.
Absolutely. Also bottlenecks as well. We put up Purple Dot. We talked about this a bit in our retail innovation webinar last week, but I would think for board retailers, especially, if you can get folks to purchase things even before they're available or after they've stocked out, I would encourage you to expand on software pieces like Purple Dot. We won't talk about it a ton on this, but do a quick Google search into how Purple Dot leverages the before and after aspects of converting on a site. The other one, especially with high ticket items, would be the buy now, pay later model. And I don't know, Doug, if you have any board retailers that are using this particular model.
Actually, quite a few. Modern uses Klarna, San Diego uses Afterpay, and it's a great situation. I mean, if you think about, surfboards now can cost, upwards of $1,000, and
absolutely.
And if you think about some of the electric skateboards and one wheels and things like that, people get daunted. They're like, I'll just wait. No, don't wait. You've got the option to separate it into 4 payments. Oh, okay, I'll get 2. So it goes a long way for sure. It definitely allows more people to do more, and really accelerates some of the bigger purchases that would otherwise be put off for sure.
Absolutely, and some of these I know Sezzle and Afterpay are already starting to adopt in-store models for that as well.
Definitely, we like Afterpay for sure.
So we're talking about all of these different channels of outreach, of ways of getting your product in and out of the store quicker. So I think being Management One, we'd be remiss not to talk about how that's going to affect your inventory strategy. And that's one of the main reasons that I wanted to have Dane on today, because that's really what Management One is all about, managing that inflow and outflow of products. So Dane, I just wanted you to touch briefly on the rise of e-commerce and how is this going to impact that buying strategy?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing here is that, we just went through this very holistic discussion on e-commerce and digital, and there are so many buzzwords out there, and there's a lot of sexiness to e-com and the digital future that it presents us. But that doesn't mean that it is, immune to just basic, good, old-fashioned inventory planning and retailing. So, we like to say that there's art and then there's science. And, e-com follows the same principles of inventory and open-to-buy planning that every brick and mortar store follows as well. Albeit the cadence is a little different. There's definitely some different tactics and strategies, and that's something that we, build into our thought process now, but the fundamentals remain the same. And so what I think is really important and the mindset that everyone needs to shift to is this idea that the ultimate goal of e-com is for it to become its own location, right? So if you were opening up a new store, you wouldn't muddy the inventory or muddy the sales for those 2 different locations. And with e-com, a lot of the times, because smaller, more independent retailers are fulfilling orders right from their store's inventory, they sometimes don't look at it as 2 separate businesses, which I know is a easier said than done type situation.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to keep in mind, keep the eye on the prize that e-com should be developing into its own location. So there are a lot of tips and tricks and workarounds, to start looking at inventory differently. I know a lot of people put up roadblocks to that, especially with, if the sale comes through, not labeling it, listing it, making sure it's in the system as an e-com order, or if your systems aren't speaking to each other, maybe there's no way of it being inputted without a manual input into your POS brick and mortar system. So, I would just encourage everyone really to keep that goal in mind, that you want to be viewing e-com as its own location. That's the goal. And the reason is right, because we want to start planning eventually for an e-com store. We want to start building an own inventory structure based on the needs of your e-com customer. Just as if you opened a store, in SoCal versus Northern California, there are going to be different needs to those stores. There are going to be different products that sell. There's going to be a different seasonality to them. And the same thing is going to develop on e-com. So making sure that you're getting those metrics is super, super important. So, the only other thing I really want to touch upon in this conversation is, okay, we're casting wire. Right. You want to make sure that your A+ product is represented online. So having an understanding of what you're selling within your store, and then, again, another roadblock to e-commerce is photography, right? So you have to have a really good understanding of what classifications are selling, what categories are selling, so that you can invest in putting those categories deeper online, right? So if boards is your #1 performing category, you want to make sure that you have a representation of that cohesively online. And not just that, you want to take your A+ bestsellers and go deep with them and pad that into your e-commerce inventory. Okay. There's a lot more to review here. And so what I want to just put out there, and Nico, I hope that, as a follow-up to this, book some time with me. I'd love to get some time on the calendar to talk about your inventory strategy, specifically how it relates to e-commerce. And again, I know that there's a lot of buzz around the digital side of the business, but, we like to think of it as there are still fundamental rules and fundamental strategies to approaching your inventory, and especially online, right? People are coming into your store at a more frequency than they're maybe walking into your physical brick and mortar store. So we want to make sure that product is turning, that there's freshness on the site, and that things aren't just getting stuck, and stagnant and starting to age on the website. So we want to keep inventory fresh. We want to mark down product that isn't, performing. We want to turn that into cash. So again, it's really just these same principles of merchandise intelligence and merchandise strategy even become more important on e-commerce because the frequency of visitation is much higher. And you could get such direct feedback through all these other opportunities of what the customer is reacting to, not even just based on sales, what they're clicking on, what they're abandoning in their cart, so that there's a lot more, again, of that holistic knowledge going on for e-commerce. So I'm happy to speak to anyone, any retailer on the call and kind of do a more in-depth deep dive into inventory. But it's something that we're seeing, independent retailers through this pandemic, planning for their e-com business has become wildly important. So,
and I think what you said, that's a really good point about merchandising too, because when you think about your storefront and you get new product in, where do you put it? You put it at the front of the store. Or if you have a top seller, you place that right in the front of the store, and your website's the same thing. You want that top of the homepage, something brand new, and you want to constantly cycle that homepage out so that you have the newest and the latest and greatest. And the other thing, to your point, I would totally agree. Wouldn't it be great in your brick and mortar store if you had a robot following somebody around, seeing everything that they picked up and looked at but didn't really buy, that's what you have with ecom. You know how many people are looking at each product page, so you can see quote unquote winners and losers on your show floor without even getting any purchase history. So it's a great layer of visibility into how people are shopping your store.
For sure, and there are ways to capture if they left something in their cart, and just a variety of other strategies that help you to convert that customer that might just be browsing a little bit or may not be completely serious about moving forward to actually pull the trigger.
Absolutely, and that's why I constantly go back to having, I call them hooks. It's almost like fishing, having as many hooks in your ecom strategy as possible. How are you going to be able to hook into that email address, or how are you going to hook into the next traffic engagement so that you can serve them up a follow-up ad or find some way to get a touch point in front of them at a later time. So we did go a little bit over, and I do apologize for that. I had a feeling it would happen with a topic this big, but I wanted to open it up to, we did have one question here from Jeff Harbaugh, more of a statement. So at the end of the day, return on investment has to involve a financial result or an increase in operating income. How do you keep costs down? So I think one of the things that we talked about earlier in this presentation, and Jeff did say that he missed the first half. It could have been in the first half there. Keeping costs down, one of the things would be segmentation and targeting in your ad strategies. So we want to make sure that you're just avoiding what we call the spray and pray advertising, and you're sending the right message to the right people. You know, if we're talking about what we just mentioned before, keeping track of what people are looking at online, that's a good place to start. Cart abandonment's a great place to start. You know somebody digitally picked something up in your store and they didn't purchase it. They're 90% of the way there. So if you need to serve them up an ad to get that extra 10%, those dollars are going to go a lot farther than just your general Facebook ad online. That would actually be, let's see, nope, that would be the other, we talked about that one as well. So that was actually it on set questions. But as I mentioned before, we're always available here. And I'm going to do a follow-up email for all of the registrants of this email that includes my contact info, Dane's contact info. Doug, I'll include yours as well if you like, but if
Absolutely,
you have
go for it.
questions that we didn't touch on, we are going to include contact info and a recording of this video as well. And I look forward to the next quarter when we put together our next presentation for the Board Retailers Association. And Doug, if you can join us on that one, we'd love to have you back again.
Glad to. We're in good company here for sure.
Well, we're excited about this. I think overall 2021 gives us a lot to be excited about, not only as a retail partner, but just working with some of the retail clients and seeing this light at the end of the tunnel of such a long year. I'm excited to see how we grow together over the next few months and the next few years together.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Nico. Really appreciate your time and your resources, as well as you, Dane. That it was very relevant, very helpful, and we're looking forward to making things happen with Management One.
Excellent.
Great today.
Thanks, guys.